Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Josie Warren and I am the autoimmune expert. And first, I want you to know out there if you have an autoimmune disease or you have a chronic illness, that your conditions are not lifelong. This channel is all about the permanent healing of autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses so that you can get your life back and your health back again. So, to know me a little bit more, I want you to know that I have been down and lived down the road of autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses. My first autoimmune disease was rheumatoid arthritis when I was 15 years old, and it happened about 6 months after my dad passed away. And from 15 on to about 28, about every year or two, I was developing a new autoimmune disease, and doctors had no answers for me. They didn't know why I was getting them, and they had no solutions for actual healing, just medications or food diets or supplements. And as the years went on, I developed Hashimoto's and lupus and Graves' disease and CVID. My last autoimmune disease was MS. And at 28, that was my wake-up call to realize that all the food diets and all the supplements and all the medications and all the specialists, none of it was working, and I kept getting worse. And at that point, I was really giving up on hope for myself. And thankfully, that's when I met my mentor, David Cope, here at a new life center where I work here in Denver, Colorado, who helped me understand that the reason I was developing my autoimmune diseases was not genetics. It was not the toxins. It wasn't the food. It wasn't the Epstein-Barr virus that I had when I was 13. It was actually me and my emotional state. It was my emotional state that was causing my immune system to dysregulate, the emotional stress that I had suppressed all of these years. And when I resolved my emotional stress, my immune system went back to normal and I permanently healed all of my autoimmune diseases. It's been over 10 years now. I'm completely healthy, completely healed. I take no medications, do no supplements, and I don't have my autoimmune diseases anymore. This journey of healing so profoundly changed my life. It is why I'm here today, taking others just like you down the path of the permanent healing of autoimmune diseases. And that's what this channel is all about. All right, well, let's get started. And the title for today's video is Why Evidence-Based Research is Quackery. So I want to talk a little bit about why I'm doing this video. We here at a new life center, we are writing a book for parents who have a child with an autoimmune disease. And we're going to title it, Why Does My Child Have an Autoimmune Disease? And in the introduction of our book, I'm going to be explaining why there will be no evidence-based research in our book. And this live is a practice of this introduction. So, in a recent journal article titled The Acute Problem of Chronic Disease, Dr. Robert Nerveau, who's a professor of medicine at UC San Diego School of Medicine, states, in the last 70 years, not a single chronic illness is curable using current medical paradigms, unless it has a cause that can be bypassed, killed, burned out, or cut out. And autoimmune diseases are chronic illnesses. So we believe that the reason why this is true, that in the last 70 years, not a single chronic illness is curable using current medical paradigms, is that the current medical paradigms uses evidence-based research. So, as an expert in autoimmune diseases, I am acutely aware that science and medicine, which use evidence-based research as its gold standard, has no known cure for any autoimmune disease. So let me define what evidence-based research is and explain why evidence-based research is the problem for why in the last 70 years, not one chronic illness has been cured. So evidence-based research means that the effectiveness of an approach to produce positive results is supported by rigorous research and quantifiable data. For science and medicine to accept any approach for autoimmune disease treatment, the treatment must be supported by evidence-based research. Without evidence-based research, science and medicine considers an approach or treatment pseudoscience or quackery. Yet, for over 70 years, there is no evidence-based research that exists that has any correlation between an approach or treatment and the curing or healing of any autoimmune disease. So to show how ineffective evidence-based research actually is as a tool to discover cures for autoimmune diseases, we only have to look to this year's Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, which requires the use of evidence-based research. This year, the prize was awarded to 3 scientists for their evidence-based research that discovered a group of immune cells called regulatory T cells, which reveal a part of how the immune system functions. Interestingly, one of the winners, scientist Shimon Sakaguchi, expressed surprise at having been given the award because he felt that any major recognition for his work would have depended on more development advances. He said, quote, "I used to think that some sort of reward may be forthcoming if what we have been doing will advance a little further and it will become more beneficial to people in clinical settings." This Nobel Prize for T cells was awarded, even though the discovery has no benefit to people in clinical studies with autoimmune diseases. Even one of the winners was surprised at the award. In the field of physiology and medicine, this is the best evidence-based research can produce. Which takes me to a quote by Albert Einstein. And this is Albert Einstein's definition of insanity. He said, "The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results." The use of evidence-based research in science and medicine, which has not cured a single chronic illness in the last 70 years in the field of autoimmune diseases, is insanity. Can you see the insanity of using evidence-based research when, since the discovery of autoimmune diseases in the 1950s, there are currently over 100 different autoimmune diseases that have been diagnosed? And of the 100 types of autoimmune diseases, there is not one known cure for any of them. This shows how far away science and medicine are using evidence-based research from finding an actual cure for autoimmune diseases. It's astonishing. So, if evidence-based research is so ineffective for autoimmune diseases, it begs the question, why do Western alternative and functional medicine still use evidence-based research as their gold standard? Well, the sad reason is, it's because their treatments for autoimmune diseases are so ineffective that the best they can do is show their treatments can provide incremental improvement in the symptoms of a patient, which demonstrates their real goal, which is improvement in symptoms rather than a cure or permanent healing of autoimmune diseases. Their goal is, how do we improve the autoimmune symptoms of an autoimmune patient so the symptoms are more manageable? It's not curing the autoimmune disease, which really takes us to the real issue. Western, alternative, and functional medicine are symptom management. And symptom management is treating the symptoms rather than the root cause of a condition. So, why is Western, alternative, and functional medicine at best only symptom management and can never achieve a cure for autoimmune diseases? Well, because they use evidence based research as their standard. And by definition, the best they can achieve is some incremental improvement in their patient's symptoms. Remember, the definition of evidence based research is the effectiveness of an approach to produce positive results is supported by rigorous research and quantifiable data. This tells you it is flawed and can never achieve a cure for permanent healing. So next, let's discuss what standard Western, alternative, and functional medicine should be using instead of evidence-based research, which could actually lead them to a cure and the permanent healing of autoimmune diseases. So the standard Western, alternative, and functional medicine should be using it's efficacy. And efficacy is the ability to achieve, efficacy is the ability to succeed in achieving a given goal. Efficacy. In science and medicine, the goal should be the cure and permanent healing of autoimmune diseases, not positive incremental improvement of symptoms. If Western, alternative, and functional medicine used efficacy rather than evidence-based research, it would push them in a direction where they could actually achieve a goal for the cure and permanent healing of autoimmune diseases. So, why don't Western, alternative, and functional medicine use efficacy? Well, because they would have no patience. If Western, alternative, and functional medicine were required to tell their patients how successful their treatments are to produce an actual cure or permanent healing of autoimmune diseases, well, no one would use their services. They would have no patience. Because what they don't tell anyone is the best they can achieve is symptom management. What a deceptive ruse that Western, alternative, and functional medicine have presented to the public. So, for example, if you polled an average group of individuals about the effectiveness of Western, alternative, and functional medicine, they would believe that if they developed an autoimmune disease and went to a doctor or practitioner, that it is reasonable to assume that their treatments would allow them to heal from their disease and become healthy again. These individuals would not know that Western, alternative, and functional medicine can never be successful in healing their autoimmune disease and becoming healthy again, and that they have no treatment that can cure their autoimmune disease. Unfortunately, this is all created by the misrepresentation of what Western, alternative, and functional medicine treatments can actually accomplish. To them, healing means incremental improvement in your symptoms so that your daily life is less burdened by your autoimmune disease. This is not really healing. So I have a little anecdotal story. We typed in the search bar in Google, when was the last time there was a cure discovered for any autoimmune disease? And the answer? There is still no universal cure for autoimmune diseases, and they are considered lifelong conditions. So, to our point, how many people would know this fact? That's how powerfully Western, alternative, and functional medicine have misrepresented the efficacy of evidence-based research and how successful evidence-based research really is. So, as an autoimmune expert, we use emotional medicine so that our patients can permanently heal their autoimmune diseases and return to a healthy life. Emotional medicine uses efficacy as its standard. I have another anecdotal story to share. Early on in our quest here to bring emotional medicine to doctors and practitioners, we went to Western and functional medicine conferences, and we exhibited to promote emotional medicine, sharing with these doctors and practitioners that we use efficacy and we have a 100% success rate in permanently healing autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses as well. And when the doctors visited our booth, unfortunately, emotional medicine was dismissed because we had no evidence-based research to support what we were doing. So once we realized this, we gave them what they asked for. We reproduced the evidence-based research consisting of data and research taken from over 20 years of permanently healing autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses to support the efficacy of emotional medicine. So with our research and data in hand, ready to demonstrate to the doctors and practitioners the effectiveness and efficacy of our program, the doctors who dismissed us when we didn't have the research and data were disinterested in our evidence-based research for emotional medicine. We even brought a copy of Candace Pert's book, Molecules of Emotion. Candace Pert, a neuroscientist, used evidence-based research to validate her findings that every illness has an emotional component to it. But alas, they only cared when we didn't have the research and data, but didn't care when we had the research and data to back emotional medicine up. We believe that the doctors and practitioners had cognitive dissonance, which is when a strong belief is challenged by new information. And what happens is people tend to double down because the new information presented is so threatening to their belief system. Our data and research for the efficacy of emotional medicine threatened their medical and scientific paradigm. Evidence-based research is great to let people into a medical paradigm or keep people out. People who threaten the paradigm. Thank you so much for joining me today. Again, why evidence-based research is quackery. And for those out there that are watching, if you have an autoimmune disease or chronic illness or have a loved one that does, we have programs for you that will permanently heal. Now, we have a young adult program for young adults with an autoimmune disease or chronic illness. That is an 11-week online self-guided educational program where that young adult comes through and they permanently heal their autoimmune disease or chronic illness and can become healthy again. And for the adults out there, we also have our adult programs, both the autoimmune healing program and the chronic illness healing program. These are both 13-week online self-guided educational programs. Again, all based in what we teach here, emotional medicine with efficacy, where our students come through and they also permanently heal their autoimmune diseases or chronic illnesses. And if you want to know a little bit more about what we do and you're not quite ready to take that step for a program, I have a free 101 course for autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses about what your doctors won't tell you. It's very informational. Make sure you watch that. And if you're interested in our programs for yourself or a loved one, please know I have a link down below to apply for a complimentary course consultation with me. In this consultation, we meet on Zoom. I learn about you, your illness, and your experience, answer any questions that you might have, and see if you would be a good fit for one of our healing programs. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I can't wait for you to one day purchase our book in the near future. Why Does My Child Have an Autoimmune Disease? We'll explain the why and also provide the solution. All right. Thanks and take care.